Let's practice with variables. So example 1.2, variables on U. So we're going to consider the students in this class as the observational units in a statistical study. Remember, observational units are those OUs, in other words, observational units. And they're each, what would I say the observational unit is in this case? We're told that it's each student in this class. And you may say, well, Sonia, couldn't I just say in each student in Stat 251? Sure. But we're looking at, or in this, specifically in this 251 in my, let's say I was teaching it at 8:10 a.m. morning, 8:10 in the morning. Each student in this 8:10 a.m. Stat 251 class, for instance. But obviously each student in this class would be totally fine. So we've got the observational unit. Remember, when we're looking at variables, it's a variable if it varies from observational unit to observational unit. So in this case, from student to student. Now we're told for each of the following variables under number 1, indicate whether it is quantitative or categorical. Now we're already told that each of these is a variable, so we don't have to worry about whether it actually is a variable or not. I'm going to do categorical, Q for categorical, C for, let's try that again. Q for quantitative, C for categorical, and I'm also going to indicate whether it's binary or not binary. On an exam or a quiz, I'll be very clear if I want you to tell me whether it is binary or not for categorical variables. So let's start with A. How many books did you read this summer? Well, can we count up, could you give me a number of books? Yeah, is it going to vary from student to student? Yes, some students are voracious readers. They'll read 15, 20 books over the summer. And some students are like, book? Zero, so they read 0. So does it make sense to add up the number of books read each student and then dividing by the number of students? Yes, arithmetic, that it would work. That's quantitative. Am I going to go into this much detail on each one? No. But this being the first couple, I want to make sure that we understand how to think about it, or at least get a feel for how to think about it. How many times a day do you check your cell phone? I'm asking for a number, how many times you do it. What do you think? And hopefully you can see right away that that's quantitative. Let's look at the part C. This is where it changes a little bit. Do you check your phone at least 10 times a day? I'm not asking how many times you've checked it. I'm asking, did you check it or do you check it at least 10 times a day? So is that quantitative or categorical? And hopefully you're like, oh, that's categorical and it's also binary. The answer is either yes or no. I either don't check it at least 10 times a day, or yes, I do check it at least 10 times a day. D, were you born in California? Same idea, categorical and binary. In what country were you born? This is where we want to be careful. It's obviously hopefully categorical. It doesn't make, there's no adding, there's no numbers here to make sense. But in what country you were born, I didn't ask whether you were born in the United States or not, which gives us only 2 options. But I just want to know, were you born, what country you were born? Were you born in the United States? Were you born in England? Were you born in Switzerland? Were you born wherever you were born? What's the country? F. How much did you pay for your last haircut, including tip? Hopefully that's very clearly quantitative. How much attention do you pay to nutritional information before you order at a restaurant? Well, how much attention, you may like, oh, there's how much, so that must be quantitative. Well, no. Remember, you got to take everything in context. So how much attention do I pay? Well, if I'm on vacation, none at all. And when Cheesecake Factory tries to give me the nutritional little packet thing, I'm like, oh, no, 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 I don't want it. Thank you, though. So I don't pay attention. If I'm trying to be healthier, I'll pay more attention or a lot of attention. So what do we think? Well, hopefully you're already seeing it's categorical. I didn't ask whether you paid attention or not. I just said how much attention. So maybe it could be like not at all, some, a lot, or all the time, or a ton, but it's non-binary, okay? Because we don't have just a a yes, no in terms of it says how much, not whether you pay attention or not. Shifting gears just a little bit, we're asking on this next one, remember the observational unit for these are still each student in this class. So the observational unit has not changed. And it's asking this next question, are the following variables? Remember, to be a variable, what we're measuring has to change from student to student in this class. So the first one is, what's the average number of students of, what is the average number of books read this summer by a student in this class? Well, the average number, what are we going to have to do to find it? Well, we're going to have to do some sort of calculation. Once we have that number, is it going to change? Well, no. What's the average number? This is actually a calculation. So this isn't going to vary from student to student. We're going to ask them how many books we're going to do the calculation because we want to know the average number in this class, right? So that's a calculation that is not a variable. That average will not change from student to student. Another one, what percentage of students in this class are left-handed? Once again, we're going to gather some information and do a calculation. It won't change because we're looking at one class. Once again, this is just a calculation. Remember, a variable changes based on from observational unit to observational unit. This is one of the things that's challenging about statistics and probability. You have to read really closely. Here, have women at Cal Poly read more books this summer on average than men? Well, hopefully you can see right away, no, that's actually a research question. Okay, we have to do a survey, we'd have to do calculations to get to an answer. So this is definitely not a variable. This is because it says beginning of the quarter here. Have women at Cal Poly read more books this summer on average than men? We're not even talking about just this class. Remember, the observational units that we're looking at are each student in this class. This is way beyond that. D. What's your favorite movie? Ooh. Is it going to vary from student to student? Yes. So it is a variable. And I'm just going to put that it's categorical and non-binary. Doesn't ask for that, but just as a reminder, that's what that would be. Is the proportion of undergrads with a Twitter account smaller than the proportion of graduate students with a Twitter account? Well, hopefully you see, once again, it's very similar to Part C. It's a research question. We would have to gather information to do that, to find out what that would be. Now, can we make some changes in what the actual observational unit is for 2A and 2B in order for these to be legitimate variables? Well, let's think about it. So we're looking at 2A and 2B. We're looking at average number of books read by a student in this class, and what percentage of students in this class are left-handed. So we're doing some calculations. What would the observational unit have to be? What's it going to vary between? Well, student to student, we already talked about it. It doesn't vary by student. But what if I found out the percentage of students in this class, so our class, that are left-handed? Do you think it's going to be exactly the same if I looked at another section of my class? Probably not. What if I looked at another class I teach altogether, like in math, my business calc class? Would that have a different percentage? Very likely. So in this case, we see that the observational unit would have to be classes, each class. Because that's when the answers would vary class to class.